How Pele changed football forever. He didn't have a bag full of tricks, he was the bag. We can all agree Pele was the first footballer to marvel the world in unison in a time where there was no internet, no YouTube and no satellite TV. Pele was the face splashed on the front cover of newspapers, he acted in movies and even turned up in Hollywood. Pele was the first footballer to transcend the game. He was known all over the world and used his fame to elevate footballers to celebrities. He is the mold upon which all modern footballers were shaped. Pele was a striker who would come short to get the ball. He also had the goal-scoring instinct and athleticism of Cristiano Ronaldo and the skills of the most elegant legends of the game. He didn't have a bag full of tricks, he was the bag. Young Edson Arantes do Nascimento loved football ever since he was a kid, even if his mother tried to forbid him from playing the game. His father loved the game as well, but horrific injuries stopped his career. This meant the entire family grew up in poverty. So, Pele would play barefooted with footballs made out of a newspaper-filled sock tied together with string. No wonder he was creative. His name was Edson, after notable inventor Thomas Edison. Pele's love for the game was accompanied by an innate talent and a willingness to prove himself right and others wrong. By the age of 15, he was already playing for Santos and he was even playing for the Brazilian national team, all before turning 17. That international debut against Argentina, in which he also scored his first goal, was the first step in Pele's revenge. In 1950, when Pele was just 10 years old, he saw his father crying inconsolably as Brazil lost the World Cup final on home soil to Uruguay. He made a promise to his devastated father right there that he will win the World Cup for him. 14 years later in Sweden, he became the youngest footballer to feature in a World Cup. He then became the youngest to assist, the youngest to score, the youngest to claim a hat-trick and the youngest to score twice in the final. Pele wasn't even 18 years old and had already won the World Cup, scoring 6 goals in 4 games. When the final whistle blew, he collapsed on the pitch. He had already kept his promise to his dad and he still had a whole career ahead of him. Pele played most of his career for Brazilian side Santos, never making the move to Europe. It's not like the European giants didn't want to bring in Pele. In fact, a plan was put in motion to stop this from happening, as he was declared as a national treasure. After the 1958 success, the eyes of the footballing world were fixed on Pele. Real Madrid, Juventus, Inter and Manchester United, they were all fighting to get him. In order to prevent a move abroad, the Brazilian president at the time declared him a national treasure. Buying him would be an offense. The fact that he never officially played in Europe is often a source of criticism from modern football pundits. In Europe, football was completely different back then. International transfers weren't the norm. Even more so when a South American footballer was finally convinced to move abroad. This usually meant being nationalized so they would not count as foreigners. This would then make them eligible for the national team. This also means that there was no talent exodus, only the best of the best played in each continent. The cup was as hard fought as the European Cup and Pele Santos ruled the continent. They won 6 Brazilian championships, 10 Paulistas championships and 2 Copa Libertadores. As they'd already conquered South America, they went and proved themselves to the world. Pele took Santos on tour to win 2 Intercontinental Cups against the AC Milan of Cesar Maldini Rivera and Trapattoni and the Benfica side of Eusebio and Santano. Santos and Pele's fame grew so big they would extend their international tour and take their footballing show on the road, as everyone wanted to see Pele play. Santos cashed in on the experience in 1959. The Brazilian team played 99 matches in South and Central America. Then moving on to Bulgaria, Belgium, the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, and Spain. The Suits were very keen to cash in by 1962. Santos's circus made it all the way to England, the home of the beautiful game, and Pele put on his show to sold-out stadiums across the land. The Guardian's correspondent at the time, Eric Todd, summed up perfectly the admiration commanded by Pele. When one considers the number of superlatives that are squandered on some inside forwards in this country, the futility of trying to find new ones to describe Pele becomes all the more obvious. Once, when playing against Sheffield Wednesday rival midfielder Tommy Craig, spent the final 10 minutes chasing Pele up and down the field. He wasn't trying to get the ball from him, he was trying to get his shirt. I told the referee to give me a signal when he was about to blow for time, so I could stand beside the great man, Craig told the Daily Record. When the final whistle came, I grabbed Pele around the waist until he had parted with the jersey. Pele established himself as an international star, a sporting hero that transcended the sport. Pele and Santos's world tour includes a story like no other. The day they stopped a conflict in Nigeria was in the middle of a violent civil conflict when Pele landed there to play a friendly game against the national team. Both factions agreed to a ceasefire so the match could take place and Nigerians could celebrate in awe of the King of Football. His Highness received his title by conquering the world with Brazil not once or twice but 3 times. He won the World Cup in 1958 as a teenager and was part of the squad in 1962, though he was injured for most of the tournament. Mexico 1970 would be his last dance, and it would be a fitting farewell for Pele, as the Brazilian team would play some of the most wonderful football ever seen. It would also prove to be a seminal moment in football history, as Mexico 1970 was the first World Cup to be broadcasted internationally and in color. Finally, the entire world could see Pele in action, having done it and won it all. Scoring over 1,000 goals, Pele retired, but not for long. As we said, he was a pioneer. He was also the first superstar to take his talent to the USA. It was former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger who convinced him to come out of retirement and join the New York Cosmos. Pele was fundamental in footballing becoming relevant to North America, and the story sums up the legend. Pele was a footballer who acted as an ambassador of the game. His Royal Eminence, who would sit at the same table as popes, secretaries of state and kings. He was friends with Nelson Mandela, and Queen Elizabeth knighted him even though he's not of British descent. Perhaps his greatest title is the simplest one, coming from a nation that continues to produce legend after legend. Pele will always be the best Brazilian footballer of all time. And whenever you see a record broken by Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, or in the future by Haaland and Mbappe, it's Pele's initial record they are breaking.